I won't deny it, I'm a Southsider. You don't wanna mess with me. Got the police looking for me. But I'm calm cause I'm smoking that CBD. Said I won't deny it, I'm a Southsider. You don't wanna mess with me. Got the police looking for me. But I'm chilling in the back of the VIP. Said we won't deny it, we are Southsiders. You don't wanna mess with us. Got the police looking for us. And there's nothing that they can't do. Cause we're chilling with the Blessed Life podcast crew. What's up, what's up, what's up, what's good? Happy Sunday. Pew, 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 pew.
So we're going to talk about next. Inflation, I think. Yes, inflation.
You got any articles on that?
I do. I just have like a general overview. In case anyone didn't know, inflation's been going up. And that's not good. So I got this article up. Let's see what it's got a date from March 28th. So not super new, but new enough. Earlier this year. So as of March 28th, even going back into 2021, apparently inflation just hit a 40-year high. So goods and services are bumped up 7.1% over that year. And it got worse in 2022. And let's see here. Oh, yeah. So I was at 7.1, I was at 2022, and now in February in 2021. Now in February of 2022 is 7.9%. So that's not good. And for anyone who doesn't know what inflation is, it's the lessening in value of the money you have. It runs off the principle of scarcity, and scarcity essentially is, why. It's like, why are diamonds so valuable? Well, there's not that many of them, and it's hard to get real diamonds. And in order to mine them, well, we can get into conflict diamonds and all that in like West Africa and whatnot. So, but essentially, the more of something there is, the less valuable it is, and the less of something there is, the more valuable it is. So when you do what our government is doing, what the Fed is doing, which is continuing to print money, endlessly and endlessly, borrow, print money. The more dollars that are in circulation, lessen the value of the dollars that you have currently. So if like you're, say, a retiree or whatever right now, and you're living off the money you had in the bank, so you're one of the greatest generation, you slugged it out with the Japanese and the Pacific, if you're in World War II or whatever, and now you're saved up, and we're monetarily smart, and you're just living on your retirement. All of a sudden, all the money you had in your bank, is worth like when inflation hits like 8%, now it's worth 8%, like 8% less. All of a sudden, like overnight, like it's unfortunate, because when inflation hits, you're literally just losing. The money you have is just worth less all of a sudden overnight. Boom, you saved all this money, now you've basically been robbed by the economy.
So the idea is supposed to be that spending, the cost of goods and services go up because the value of the money the person selling them went down, so they have to now charge more for the same goods and services. We're going to continue this conversation now and also later, but I would like to get an economics professor in to kind of talk about this and see what they've been reading about what it's going in, and particularly this bout of inflation that they're having. What are the factors that go into it? Because when I look back during my lifetime, there was inflation in the 80s prior to when I was before I was born, or at least at a time when I was not old enough to remember. And it seemed like the run-of-the-mill inflation was just like we just said, basically that the spending had increased so much that and there was so much money in circulation and it was being spent, and so much debt being issued that each individual dollar was worth less, and so businesses had to charge more for their goods in order to, the cost of goods was going up and the cost of providing goods and services had to go up as well. However, in this time period, we've seen, everything leading up to 2022, we've seen incredible, just tremendous amounts of government spending on all sorts of things. But then we also had a pandemic. We had supply chain issues, and what I want to hear, like, how all those things factor in. So
Yeah.
where it's not just your garden variety recession because they had to come because there's just a regular slowdown. What is this that we're looking at right now? What contributes to it, and what direction are we heading? And those are the things I'd like to know about.
Yeah, and this article kind of touches on some of that to an extent, to a general extent. So they're basically saying that we've got increasing costs for businesses all across the country. So employer compensation costs, wages, insurance benefits, retirement benefits, unemployment taxes, paid leave, etc. That's the highest growth in 2 decades. So, and in 2021 alone, producer prices increased by more than 20%, which is the largest annual increase since 1946. So yeah, just the cost of running a business like skyrocketed as of last year, and it continues to right now. So,
And the labor shortage is driving wages up.
Exactly. You're right on the money, man. So, and not just the availability of workers, so also workers' productivity. So that was the fastest drop in 2021 in more than 60 years. So businesses were essentially paying more, getting less, and also, like you just said, due to another complicating factor is what you just said, is the worker shortage. So you have less people, and then the people that are working are doing less. It's just bad from all fronts, So when you have a worker shortage, obviously you have to make cost increases to run your business. So, and then you pass those costs along to the consumers. So it's just it's an unfortunate, just vicious cycle that. But so this is what the article claims, and I should say. So this is what is this? FGA. Yeah. Anyways, so what this article is saying that I'm reading is, if I can find it. Okay, so they're saying, we had the expanded benefits that came after COVID as a response to COVID and the increased government spending. So that obviously played a factor.
In inflation.
Yeah, in inflation. So you had to print more money. Obviously, anytime you're printing a lot of money, inflation is going to go up. This was more so than the standard creep, because we've been on an inflation creep for decades, obviously, in this country. So it's just kind of the nature of an economy. Inflation tends to rise over time. I guess that's just how it's got to be. I don't know. I'm not an economist. I'm just a lawyer. What the fuck do I know? But it's just weird to me that, like, I remember my dad would tell me stories about, he had this 80s Jetta that was diesel that he used to commute to work in DC with, and you drive out there from the farm into DC, and the fucking thing, it had like no horsepower. It had like not even 80 horsepower or whatever, and it was diesel and had this tiny little fucking 4-banger, and you would get like 50 miles to the gallon in like an 80-something diesel Jetta. And he was like, Matt, back then, like, gas cost like 25 cents a gallon, and I was in the 80s, which is fucking crazy. Can you imagine at 25 cents a gallon? Obviously, but that's not adjusted for inflation. I'm not sure what that would equal to in today's dollars, 25 cents in the 80s, but it would still be cheaper than what we're paying now for gas, because that's up to. But I just don't. An economist, or some fucking big brain asshole who might hear this will be like, oh, I fucking knew this, but I don't know why that the natural progression of things, like, I guess the reserve has to keep printing money that gets fucked, to keep putting money in circulation as the population grows or whatever, and as the country expands, so too much inflation. But it's like, why must we just keep printing money as much as we do? I don't know why the Fed continually like does that, incessantly. Like, how much money do they need to print, and are they printing more than they need to? I'm just not sure the causes of that. Why we have the inflation creep. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've been very fortunate as a country that we haven't seen like. Not that we haven't seen inflation, but rather that we haven't seen very high spikes in inflation that other countries have had, or have had the opposite problem. Like I think they said Japan or one of these countries in the 90s was having stagflation, which we won't define that now. We'll get to it another time. But you would think the way that we've spent for, I guess since the 80s, that we would have much higher inflation than we do. We've been lucky we haven't, but now we're finally starting to see a bit of real inflation during these times. Because you get these people say, man, money ain't real, shit's fake or whatever. And like when you're printing it at the fucking scale that we do, you actually kind of start wondering, well, if you can keep on printing this forever and it's not backed by, money is not backed up by gold like we were on the gold standard, then what meaning does it have after
it's
a while?
Monopoly money.
Because in exchange for to have something valuable, or like to get something valuable in exchange, like debt is valuable because we owe you something we have to then work for to give to you later. So you wonder what the limits of that are. Is there, as America, we are at the top. We are the number one economy in the world, and do we get a free pass then because we're in that driver's seat, or is there a limit to some point where
Not
it's
forever,
going to, is it going to cause real economic problems? We haven't seen that in America. Other countries have seen inflation and all that when their currencies collapsed and things, when communism ended in those countries. So we're lucky in that regard. I've been talking to business owners, and they've been telling me, yeah, man, it's hard to find people. And another thing that I want to delve into on the podcast is, why is that? Like, we had COVID. People have been damaged mentally. Are there still segments of the population out there that are so afraid of getting COVID that they don't want to go out and work? And how are those people getting by? And why are we seeing such a labor shortage? People filled these positions prior to COVID, and now afterward, I don't know if people shifted industries or just whatever, or just are not participating in the labor force the way they used to. But I want to know what accounts for that too. What is it that's going on with people, or why is it that we are dealing with such a shortage right now?
Yeah, and I think this article also goes into that. So they're saying that employers across the country have more than 11 million jobs open that they need to fill, which is
it's a pretty high
almost a record
jobs.
high. Yeah. And so that's it. It's not being driven by layoffs. It's not just that you were laid off with COVID. This is post-COVID. This is post-pandemic now, really. So this is caused by a record number of employees just quitting, combined with a drop in labor force participation. So we have nearly 3 million workers that are just missing from the American economy in terms of like young people. Apparently, there's a lot of young people that aren't working, is what this is saying. And so this also directly coincides with increased paid benefits to stay home, like those benefits that were part of like that. I think it was part of the COVID relief package that was pushed out. You had a lot of unemployment. There's unemployment insurance payments, Obamacare subsidies, a 25% increased food stamp payments. There's more on top of that. Also, apparently these folks got a reservation wage. No. So they're talking about this thing called the reservation wage, which is essentially the lowest wage that they would be willing to accept a job. And so that spiked to a record high of $71,000 in 2021. That's crazy. With the largest increases concentrated among those without college degrees. So it's basically people without a degree saying, I won't take a job for, less than X amount. And a lot of people's X amount was pretty high in terms of relevance from what they had been previously. That's crazy. I guess a fucking record high of an average of $71,000 per year. That's the lowest people said they would be willing to accept. Holy shit. Okay.
It's pretty high.
Yeah. Without a degree. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So government programs contributing, because people are getting benefits. There wasn't a need to work, and I've seen it personally. I've seen people who got laid off, who wanted to spend time with their family, and just collected unemployment benefits so they didn't have to go to work, so they could kind of like watch their kids grow up for a little while, whatever. I think there's a lot of those people where there is a ceiling at some point where those payments wear off, and they have to get back to work. And the question is, are they gonna go to the same field, different field? What field are they gonna go into? Things like that.
Yeah.
But it's just in terms of handling things in the best interest of people. How bad can the government do? I mean,
pretty bad.
If they, we witnessed it, right? We literally saw for the past couple of years during COVID about there's a medical principle of related to pandemics and epidemics, and this quote or this idea that I'm talking about came out of, I think it's Dr. Peter Bregan's book, COVID-19 and the Global Predators, We Are the Prey. And he's basically saying that, like, he starts off a chapter with this quote where it's like this principle of medicine, that the more people can go about their lives like normal during a pandemic, they can continue working and going about their lives the way they did prior to the pandemic or epidemic rising, the better off they'll be mentally. Mentally they'll be better off, and they'll be overall just, I guess, in a better place and healthier from not having to go through shutdown, isolation, fear, anger, all these things. So that literally got turned on its head during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
During COVID. People weren't allowed to work. They weren't allowed to go to a job. They had to do it with restrictions. Anything that they were allowed to do, they were, there was restrictions on it. And then business owners had to deal with it too, and play this fucking game of how we figure out a way that we can stay open without getting shut down because of fucking spiking COVID numbers. So you're being told that you can't work, or you can't do this, or you can't run a business at this time.
Yep, government officials were just like, you're open, you're not, you're open, you're not.
Yeah.
And it's like,
none of them medical experts.
What was your metric for determining that? Oh, you're an elected official, and you just get to pull it out of your ass, basically.
Yeah.
Just serendipitously. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah,
a lot of dictatorship type of stuff going on. There was no... Too
authoritarian.
They're saying, we're relying on medical experts. Well, how about the ones that say that it's, it's not good for you. It's not good for people's health and suicide numbers and all this shit to be staying closed this long. Like, you're fucking shit up. At some point, it's an unavoidable virus, and at some point people are gonna have to go about their lives like normal. Like, we saw this, and then on top of it, like, you have to wonder, like, your response to this went on for way too long. Not only in terms of closing things down, but the amount of benefits you're paying. Like, to give people an incentive to stay home, it's not a good incentive for society, for them or for the rest of society. Like, mentally, people need some sense of purpose. They need to go out and do things. They need to have something they belong to, or something that they achieve, or whatever. To deprive people of that, and then give them an incentive not to go back, and to allow that to continue for a very, very long period of time.
Even after we were out of the worst of it.
Yeah, out of the worst of it.
Yeah,
These
even
people
after.
could stay home and whatever, and I think, eventually when those benefits run out, you'll probably see people come back in. But we'll see. These are just my theories and opinions, and I look forward to having an economist on, or an economics professor, to talk about, to get more into depth on these. But that's a pretty good general overview, I think.
Yeah. I just wonder, going forward.
I set an alarm because I have laundry that I gotta take out of the dryer.
Gotcha.
I forgot all about setting that until it went off right now.
Dude, it's all good, man. Just going forward, like, here's what I'll put on a tinfoil hat and say, reasons for inflation. I think about this. We have a monumentally high national debt. It's our national debt is, more money than God has, and I don't know how many 20-some trillion it is now.
Yeah,
but
I would guess it's around 30 trillion or something.
It's
like
probably
that.
getting up there.
Take a minute. Once you finish your point, take a minute and look what is the current national U.S. debt.
So, what I was gonna say is, I think maybe some of this is intentional, driving inflation. I know that the government has. We'll talk about the Inflation Reduction Act in a minute. They're gonna notionally try to do it. It's probably not gonna work, but.
Because nobody knows what's in it.
Yeah. But I think a lot of it is we've racked up so much debt. This is the only way the federal government is going to be able to pay back its money is when the dollar is worth fuck all, Like, I think it's going to help them be able to actually pay back the debt,
I just feel like
it'll alleviate the burden of paying it back. So I think maybe some of it has to do with that. That's part of the reason. Not wholly, but
I'm cynical though, so for me it's like, yes, if the dollar's worth less, maybe it would be easier to pay back, perhaps. But who says that they actually want to pay it back? I feel like the powers that be or whatever would rather just fucking us go belly broke. Like, I don't think they're worried about paying it back. People who spend money, like fucking the old saying goes, like drunken sailors, like these politicians do, I don't think they're concerned about paying it back. They're not even thinking about that day. They're just, I have a checking account that I can keep on writing checks forever, and it's just magic to them.
The deficits are
it seems like they have no intent of paying it back. Because I don't think people who intend on spending money or intend on paying back money spend it like they do.
Well, I think last year we had was it a $2.8 trillion deficit? We're pushing 3 now, because we generally take in. We produce. I forget what the fuck it is, but we spend more. Like, what was the fucking equation? I forget what the.
Well, we spend more than we take in.
We spend more than we take in, and
that's
so
the deficit.
Yeah, so we take in 3/4 of what we spend. Basically, I think is essentially how it is.
I think it's something like that. So
I'm
we're always spending
fraction,
like a quarter. Yeah, it seems like I think we're always spending a quarter more than what we take
roughly.
Which all adds up over time.
If the U.S. was a business, it's been said many times by many people, but yeah, if it was a business, then we would have gone bankrupt, a
long time ago.
Ages ago.
So let's take a look at what the current national debt is. August 14, 2022.
Current U.S. national debt.
There's actually a national debt clock where you can just watch it spin and spin out of control
debt
as it's
clock,
going up every minute. Yeah, the debt clock.
I can watch it in real time. Okay, let's see here. Oh, holy shit. Looks like it's
29 trillion.
28 trillion.
Okay, I'm surprised it's not higher than that. But it's close. I was thinking it was near 30. So 28 trillion plus change.
Yeah. That was by the end of 2021.
Think about the amount of time it took to rack up that kind of a national debt, and they just continue spending. The federal government.
I just don't see this ending well. Like, when is it all gonna come crashing down? When the powers that be call on their loans, and I mean, if that happens, I mean, fuck, like the dollar's gonna completely crash. It'll be worth
and you're
nothing.
talking about a huge power vacuum, possible World War III scenario when that kind of shit happens. And that's another question I'd like to ask somebody who's an economist or a professor that would know the answer is, what's the question I'm seeking here? What are the terms of repayment for national debt? Because when I was growing up, my dad told me they're only paying the interest on it. They're not touching the principal. That's why it keeps the debt just keeps on growing. So they're paying interest. These people are constantly getting payments.
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems to be correct. That would be my guess is what it is. They're only paying the interest. They're not even touching principal. So we have this principal that continues growing while we're only servicing the debt with just interest-only payments. But what are the terms in terms of, like you said, calling it in? When's the maturity date? When is it due? What does that look like? They probably keep continuing refinancing the debt, maybe at higher interest rates or something. But at some point, a loan eventually has to mature at some point, whether it gets delayed through refinancing it down the line. But yeah, you would think it would have to get repaid eventually, because otherwise it's kind of a fucking fake system. It's a phony system if there's no real consequences to continuing to print free money. And that's what I want to talk to an economist about. Another question, so we said, to answer the question of how much is the U.S. national debt in 2022, right now we're at 28 trillion, and they're about to add another fucking trillion on for the
I found the debt clock, correction, it's 30 trillion, 30.6 trillion.
Originally, that was my guess, yeah. So 30 trillion.
Yeah.
All right, so 28 may as well be 30 if you're rounding up anyway, so yeah, $30 trillion.
Fuck, I didn't realize it was that much.
30 fucking trillion dollars. And it took a while to get up there, because we were spending trillions for the last, from Bush through Obama to all the way up to now, yeah. Whatever president was.
Everyone's a big spender.
Yeah, there was always something, right? Like, you know, Bush gets us into Iraq and Afghanistan. Obama continues it afterwards because there's no easy pull-out or withdrawal. But then you also have, you have the Affordable Care Act, which is... Affordable Care Act that's really, really expensive for the country. So it's incredibly expensive, but also affordable because of the name. What's in a name?
Marketing,
anyway,
man.
Yeah, and then you have, the pandemic hits, and you have all this spending. Well, let's not forget the bailouts from 2008, because they spent trillions of dollars avoiding a global economic collapse, because these main financial houses and institutions were literally at the point of almost dragging down the entire world and maybe causing the next world war, because of where the chips fall after that, and because of desperation and the need for money that's not coming in and repaying back like all the things that are owed. The next number that I'm wondering about, if you can find, is what was the national deficit for 2021. So if you look up
the whole year?
Yeah, the year of 2021. That's already passed. How much
debt did we take out?
Well, yeah, how much did we spend versus how much did we earn?
I believe it was 2.8
revenue
trillion.
Versus outgoing payments, or credits versus debits, credits versus charges. Because I'd like to know what deficit they're running every year. Because they're doing these spending bills like the Inflation Reduction. That's not even in their budget, I don't think. They're just adding that on to the national debt, I'm pretty sure. Right? That's not like something, we have this much that we can spend discretionally. We're going to do this Inflation Reduction Act.
Let's see here. Interest costs. Come on. By year.
2021.
Yeah, I'm looking here.
Budget deficit for the federal government.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to find it, and we'll see who gets it quicker.
We can do FY 2021, 2022.
We could do 2020. We could do 2019, 2018. Those are all relatively recent years. So let's see, 2022 or 2021.
Fuck.
Federal budget
debt to GDP
deficit.
So yeah, that's 2.8 trillion. Yeah.
Well, let me read this out.
Second largest in history, just short of FY 2020. So 2020 ran a deficit of 3.1 trillion. 2021 ran a deficit of 2.8 trillion.
Well, here, what are you looking at? The taxfoundation.org?
U.S. Government Accountability Office.
Okay, that's probably more accurate.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at Congressional Budget Office. Let me see what that says. But I'm seeing the same or similar numbers.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
U.S. News 2021. So on U.S. News, I'm seeing the U.S. budget deficit totaled $2.77 trillion for 2021, the second highest on record, and an improvement from the all-time high in 2020 of $3.13 trillion. So they spent almost $3 trillion more than they took in revenue in the United States almost 3 trillion more in 2021, and over 3 trillion in 2020. That's fucking impressive, dude.
Yeah.
To spend trillions of dollars more than you're taking in.
Yeah.
They try to justify this on the basis of necessity, but the problem is they did that when the fucking financial markets almost crashed in 08. And you know, for spending for the wars too. They're just like, fuck it, you know what I mean? Like, we're just gonna spend because we need to, and in times where you need to. Like, they're granted, I think 2008 was a good time to spend that money. I was listening to economist Paul Krugman at the time, who I think is probably people would consider more on the like liberal side, but he was saying this is exactly what we need the government to do, is to step in to fill the gaps that the private market doesn't make when, or it's on the point of complete collapse. It's like those are times where spending money is justified. But then you get the pandemic, and instead of letting people run their businesses, they shut them down. But they said, okay, we'll give you these payments. Like, that means that in 2 years, we've increased the national debt by about $6 trillion.
It's fucking crazy.
It's insane, because we're covering all core services plus whatever additional money these all-wise, all-knowing politicians deemed to be necessary during these times.
And I understand those were problem years. Obviously, it's going to be higher if you have a fucking pandemic and whatnot. But now that we're into 20, it'll be interesting to see what happens this year, if they can reduce it. But it's like, what do you? It'll be interesting to know, like, how much did this increase from previous? Like, I want to kind of just check, like, say 2015 budget deficit to see how much this changed and then the COVID.
Well, I think what would be nice to see would be budget deficits from the year 2000 onward.
Yeah, you know, just randomly. See, like 2015, it was 439 billion deficit. So,
which is
significant,
as high as that is, not bad,
significantly better.
Yeah.
That, you know, so I'm like, what is a regular fucking year? And that was the smallest since 2007. So these are, you know, obviously like Iraq war years, earliest, you know, earlier in the 2000s. So, which it was below the average deficit, but I just want to know what's normal for us in the 21st century.
I think
Let's
I
look
found
at 2013.
I found the site. datalab.usa or usaspending.gov, federal budget deficit by year. So let's see if they can show me that.
So 2013 was something like 900 billion.
Yeah, there's a lot of years.
Oh, no. 680 billion in fiscal year 24.
So I'm looking back from 2001 was the last time the government had a surplus. So in 2001, they had more money coming in than they were spending. Wow, that sounds beautiful to me.
It sounds like ancient history.
Things are running well.
Yeah.
We have a good economy. It's strong. We're getting more money than we need, and we're choosing not to go on a discretionary spending binge. Then it shows in 2002 the budget deficit was actually not that bad. From 2002 up until 2008, we were spending less than $500 billion a year more than we were making. So we were spending just under $500 billion more, right? So not good for long-term budget deficits. But then in 2009, 2010, and 2011, we were spending close to $1.5 trillion more than we were bringing in. That number started to dip in 2013, down to over $500 billion. Then, as you mentioned earlier, you were getting closer. 2014 and 2015 are under $500 billion more than we took in, and then it starts creeping back up over $500 billion, starting in 2016, and then it spiked incredibly high to over $3 trillion more than we had in 2020 and 2021. This is a really cool chart. As you can see here, it just lays it out nice and easy. I don't think viewers are going to be able to see this. No, you can't see it at all.
What side is that?
It says datalab.usaspending.gov.
Okay.
Don't know if this is an official site, but based on my knowledge and research of deficits from over the years, this is something I paid attention to as a political science student who was, you know, I was in the economics club and stuff. This kind of thing always interested me, because right when I was in college is when the crash happened in 08, in 09, when I was going to get my college degree at that time. So I believe these to be fairly accurate, and it's crazy to watch it like with your own eyes on a screen to see how much more they're spending than what they make in the federal government. It's crazy. And then we got state debt as well. So it's not just the federal debt. There's a lot of money that U.S. citizens owe to all the people that they owe it to, domestic investors, foreign investors like China and Brazil and Japan and Britain and Canada and all these people that invest in our debt.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. Let's check in with this Inflation Reduction Act. So for the listeners, the federal government is talking about spending $1 trillion to combat inflation, which seems really counterintuitive to us. Like, oh, if you have inflation, don't you want to stop spending as much fucking money? No,
Yeah.
we're going to double down. We're going to do another trillion. Like it's a fucking small poker chip at a table in Vegas or something. We're going to spend extra money. So the name of a law is not always intuitive, right? Like you have the Patriot Act, which allows them to take all the way the freedoms and makes you fucking patriotic in the first place, right? Or to define America,
Yeah.
or whatever. Not take away those freedoms, but to limit them or to spy on you, to invade your privacy, to give you less privacy rights, all this shit. So now we have this Inflation Reduction Act. Is it really going to reduce inflation? Is
Probably
that the
not.
purported purpose? It sounds like it from
It's
the name.
just it's the marketing stretch, but it's just
An excuse to spend
it's an
$1 trillion?
expenditure. Yeah, and it's some ways it's a money grab, in other ways it's an expenditure. But I don't think, from the looks of what I'm reading here, it's probably not going to reduce inflation. It's essentially, I'm reading Forbes here. Not granted, take that for what you will. Internet,
It used to be a really, really good source, but now for everybody from the New York Times to Forbes to Investors Business Daily
knows?
or fucking
Who
Wall Street
knows?
Journal even has problems.
So what they're saying is basically a slimmed down version of the Build Back Better bill. And this new bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, I forget what are they actually, yeah. So they're calling it. This new bill makes the largest investment in combating climate change in U.S. history, lowers the cost of prescription drugs, and raises taxes on corporations. I don't know what climate change has to do with inflation. Maybe, but I'm not I'm just a lawyer. I'm not an economist. So,
But as a reasonable person, I don't know what it does either.
It's just a
Like,
money expenditure.
I'm all for
Yeah.
investing in cleaner technologies. Like, I'm not a tree hugger, but I also don't think that it's all right to be breathing in carbon all the time in these big cities where we live. Like, it cannot be healthy to be just breathing in pollution.
Oh no, it's
constantly.
not. Yeah.
So I'm all for green technologies or anything that can, reduce pollution. But also, I don't understand how the fuck that's tied to fighting inflation. I have no idea.
I don't think it is.
Somehow,
Yeah.
show me the connection. So how much of that money? Well, first of all, can you
We'll
see
break
the
it
total?
down.
Yeah.
Well,
what's
we'll
the
break it
total they're
down.
talking about spending on this bill?
I'm not. Maybe that's later, but I'm going to break it down
All right,
exactly what
cool.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a big provision. So it's the creation of a 15% corporate minimum tax rate. So corporations with at least $1 billion in income will have a new tax rate of 15%.
What is it now? That seems like kind of low, right?
Yeah, I mean, taxes on individual and households won't be increased. And then I'm not sure what it is now, honestly. And then
Well, it's lower than 15% if they're raising it to 15%.
yeah, minimum. So at least
minimum.
it depends probably on the
That's the
corporation. So
entry level,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know what
It
as
could
high
be
as
as
it
high
could
as
go.
30%
Yeah.
or 40%.
So,
maybe.
all right, then we have prescription drug price reform. So this is going to allow Medicare to negotiate the price of certain prescription drugs, bringing down the price beneficiaries will pay for their medications. They'll
So
have
this sounds like it's
that's-
at least getting in the
that's
ballpark of
good.
reducing inflation because
that's
medical
good.
costs are probably going up.
Yeah,
Prescription drugs are probably going up.
managing cost of drugs could help reduce inflation by a little bit, I suppose.
Well, at least on the medical,
Yeah, and this,
on medicine.
yeah. So
So
there's
at least that seems like it's
that
like
seems
relevant
good.
in terms of like
it
evidential
works.
relevance, like we learned in law school.
Yeah.
Green technology and relevance to fighting inflation, don't really see the connection there, but reducing the price of prescription drugs would help at least everyday Americans. How much are they spending on each one of these things? So the green technology,
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We'll get to that
All
later.
right, cool.
So we got IRS tax enforcement. I believe this is the tens of thousands new fucking IRS agents they're going to be adding to the payroll.
so
that's
they're
just-
growing the IRS.
Yeah. So it's going to.
Some people want to eliminate
How's
the IRS,
that
and we're
gonna-
talking about growing it.
So how's that going to help inflation? Because this is the problem. They do something like that where with the the prescription drug price reform, where it can negotiate prices, chip away at those, but then you're hiring $80 billion, into hiring these fucking new IRS. I forget projections, something like 50 to 70,000 new IRS agents, so they just have a bigger army to like fucking audit you with, you know. And honestly, how's that gonna really work? It's just gonna give them more fucking manpower to audit more people, to loot more money from the American people. They're not gonna be fucking. I don't believe for 1 minute they're gonna use that IRS army to, like, you know, fight big corporations and stick it to the man. They're gonna have a greater ability to go after the middle class, I think, and go after your regular people, or your higher upper middle class, or whatever, you know, lower upper class, whatever the fuck it is. Right, more like regular folks. So have the availability and manpower to audit more folks. That's what's gonna happen. So they can loot more money from us and we'll be paying them to do it. And that definitely doesn't help inflation when you're creating more federal jobs. It always blew my mind, like, you know, hey, I'm a federal employee, I'm a weekend warrior, you know,
You're in
I'm
the
part
US
of this.
Army as a reservist.
Yeah, I'm part of this, you know, machine too, and so I'm aware of that. But even as a federal, you know, employee, I can say, like, the Fed has gotten too big. Like, the last thing we need are more federal employees. And it always blew my mind when people tout this shit, like, even not just federal employees, but like government government contractors or whatever. Like, oh, we're creating, you know, these new fucking jobs to build tanks or whatever like that. It's like, yeah, but it's being paid for with taxpayer money. It's not actually producing. It's not actually producing revenue. Like, it's not coming from the production of the population. It's being paid from people who work. It's taxpayer funded. So it's like, they're not real job creators. It's just an account. It's just a moving around of money that was already taxed. Like, so, and the same thing with these IRS agents. It's like, dude,
Green
you're just
technology,
spending more money,
reducing costs of medicine, hiring more IRS agents.
Yeah.
Maybe in an apparent attempt to collect more revenue to fucking fight inflation. Okay.
Yeah.
This is
I
getting
don't
to the
think
point
so.
where it's fantasy or whatever. But
Yeah. Okay, we got more.
And then what else we got? Yeah. What else?
So we've got the Affordable Care Act subsidy extension.
Okay, so they're making health insurance more.
Lower
Allegedly,
premiums.
they're making
Allegedly.
keeping health insurance costs lower for longer.
Yeah. So apparently, so the subsidies, which were scheduled to expire at the end of the year, they're going to extend those through 2025. So that's, you know, okay. I get what they're doing there. That looks reasonable. So yeah, they're essentially subsidizing these medical insurance premiums to keep costs lower. But that's more government expenditure, though, of government money, of federal money. So it's like, yes, it's helping people pay less, but that's supplemented by federal money. Is that really reducing inflation?
It doesn't seem like it. No.
Yeah. I'm not seeing it. Okay, so we have energy security and climate change investments. Here's the funky shit. Bill includes numerous investments in climate protection, including tax credits for households to offset energy costs, investments in clean energy production, though that's just making it rain on wind and solar, and tax credits aimed at reducing carbon emissions. So I guess it's shit like, oh, you bought a Tesla, you get to pay, you get a tax credit for that, which is already federally subsidized, but whatever.
Anything else on that list that they're investing, or
So
is that it?
that's
Those are the major
points.
Jesus
So
Christ.
here's the kicker, though. According to this article, according to Forbes, take out what you will. So there is a study that is basically saying that it's going to have no impact on inflation. So, according to the Penn-Wharton budget model, the PWBM, there's low confidence that this legislation will have any impact on inflation. The PWM is a nonpartisan research-based organization at the University of Pennsylvania that creates economic analysis of the public policy's fiscal impact. So in a nutshell, okay, here we go. Now let's hear from the Congressional Budget Office. CBO estimates this will have a, quote, negligible effect on inflation in 2022, and in 2023 will change inflation somewhere between 0.1 percentage points lower and 0.1 percentage points higher than it is currently. So fuck all. The bill is just a marketing strategy. It's not going to do shit for inflation.
Yeah. I'm telling
Even
the
CBO
voters.
says this.
I'm
Yeah.
telling the voters with the name of this law that I'm out there fighting inflation for you. I'm out there. This is the Inflation Reduction Act. We've taken action. The only thing you've done is acted to spend more money with no palpable result based on the studies that we're discussing here.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. It's fucking scary, man. And this has been going on our entire lives and is probably going to continue going on until... who knows, man? If there's some kind of fucking change in government, some kind of revolution, or perhaps at least some kind of sea change where you have politicians that are going to start acting in the best interest of America in office. But the money that's out there in politics is probably the most powerful force in the world.
We as a people have to come together. This is what I believe, that we as a people have to come together and refuse to elect anyone that is not going to fuck off after one term and put that into law federally. That we need everyone who runs for federal office, and probably state office too, honestly. 'Cause there's definitely corruption at the state level.
Yes,
so
we need to
big time in certain states. Illinois, looking at you. But you know the deal. We cannot elect anyone who is not going to run as part of their platform that they will put into black letter law at the federal level that there are term limits for everyone. Every elected representative. Like, everyone just goes in, does one fucking term, gets the fuck out. I really think that it should be more like jury duty than having these lifelong career fucks, you know, like so many in Washington, who have been, you know, senators for 40 fucking years. I remember my dad, I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can. He knew this one guy. I believe his name was Senator Strom Thurmond was the name. Old school guy back in the day. He was a senator for decades and decades and decades. And
a lot of accusations of racism against that guy.
Yeah, he was. I don't know much about. From what I heard, he was kind of a piece of shit. And not so. This isn't so much how much of a piece of shit he was, but rather that he was entirely incompetent to hold office, and he had no business at a certain point being in office. Like, my dad would tell him, like he would, every time Strom would come to see my dad, he would give him like.
Wait a second. We should just. I'm gonna put a pin on that for a second. There might be some HIPAA issues and shit. And I'm not trying to.
Well, I haven't said anything about how he knew him or anything like that.
Okay.
But every time he would come to see my dad, to visit him, every interaction they would have, he would give him like a little token, like a pen or like a souvenir token, something like that, and he never remembered my dad. Every time he would see him, he would always forget that he had seen him previously and give him the same thing. You know, it was fucking hysterical. He had like fucking, I don't know, like 5 or 10 of these little like tchotchkes that he gave my dad because he was so fucking just demented. And he'd be like, this guy was just, I mean, he was asleep half the fucking time, didn't know what fucking day it is, didn't know what, you know, I don't even know what month it is. Like, he belonged in a nursing home.
Yeah.
And yet he's an acting senator. So, yeah.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think we have to worry about him. I'm just saying, like, their interaction, there's nothing confidential about that. In their interaction, I haven't said what their interaction was, but yeah, just
Yeah.
Washington, man.
There were no medical
Yeah.
details or whatever, or anything like that
So,
maybe would cause a violation of HIPAA.
No.
So. But in any event, yes, that's crazy to think that those are the people out there running the country. But, well, we talked about inflation. We talked about this Inflation Reduction Act, and it just seems like, you know, good in name only and just another way to spend more money and just sink us further into debt. Somebody else, if we're wrong, then let us know. Point to the numbers, point to the fucking studies. Because right now it looks like we're just getting swindled, but whatever.
But yeah.
What else we got, brother? We got, I think, 2 more, maybe?
Yeah, speaking of swindling, let's talk about TikTok and China.
And what was it? The Department of Defense came out and warned the U.S. government that they consider TikTok a national security threat.
Well, the FCC commissioner came out and said that DoD troops, you know, using TikTok may be a national security threat. because it's basically run by a company that's basically run by the Communist Chinese Party. They have the final say in what basically all their companies do over there. It's not like they have independent private companies that don't answer to the government. They all answer to the government at the end of the day. So what they're basically saying is that troops, soldiers who have TikTok installed in their phones, they could be potentially jeopardizing national security with the use of TikTok. So, while you can't use TikTok on your government-issued cell phone, government-issued computer, they have it on their personal cell phone. So what do you have with you when you're out on the training site? You have your personal cell phone. So TikTok, it's owned by this Beijing-based company called ByteDance. And the FCC is concerned about the amount of non-public sensitive data that could potentially be gleaned from just having TikTok on your phone. So a lot of people in the military have it. Some of my soldiers have it. I honestly, it looks like something for me. Maybe I'm getting old, but it's just this is something that a teenage girl should have. This looks like teenager shit. But anyway, so but troops are apparently uploading TikTok videos of them in the barracks on military installations with their military equipment and whatnot. And so with this device in your pocket, it's basically going inside the military installation, looking at the location data, looking where your troop movements are. It's not good, and that's being fed directly back to the CCP, from our soldier cell phone. It's basically spyware, essentially, is what they're saying. So there's a whole range of ways that sensitive data, is going back to Beijing. There's this AI that can, see through TikTok and feed it right back to them to know what we're doing on military installations. And that's not good because you want your geopolitical adversaries to know the least about you as possible in terms of your troop movements, what's going on. So I bet there's going to be some DoD directive that's going to come down where it's going to be hey, you guys have to fucking ensure everyone uninstalls this shit out of their phones. There'll be another spreadsheet I'll have to deal with.
So, what's the date of that article that you pulled up there?
Pretty recently. Thursday, July 14th. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that just came out.
Yeah.
Within the last month, yeah.
So they're saying a bunch of different. So apparently, they're saying that TikTok is engaged in a pattern of misrepresentation regarding both the amount and extent of data it's collected, as well as how much has been accessed from inside China. What a surprise. They're not being transparent.
I was just going to say, surprise.
Yeah.
They're taking more than what they told you they really were. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Apparently, there was a BuzzFeed news report that there was a leaked audio from 80 internal TikTok meetings that showed China has repeatedly accessed Americans' user data. So this is known. This isn't speculated. This is known stuff.
I hope I'm fucking safe. I don't have TikTok, and I joked around for a long time with friends of mine, I should probably get it, but I don't want the Chinese Communist Party having all my fucking personal information and access to tons of fucking things outside of what you need for a social media app. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just American people itself too. This. So they're saying that at its core, TikTok is functioning as a sophisticated surveillance tool that harvests extensive amounts of sensitive data from search and browsing history, keystroke patterns, location data, and biometrics, including face prints and voice prints. So they're using this, not just obviously with the potential of monitoring our troop movements and troop activity on military installations, but just on the American people in general, what our priorities are, collecting information on us, probably to use against us, honestly. I can't imagine it's for benevolent purposes.
Well, yeah, they're basically getting a really in-depth idea of who the American citizen is and what makes them tick. Pardon the pun, yeah. Well, what makes them tick, and fucking, having that understanding they can use it to manipulate things. And I was telling some friends of mine on I think the prior podcast, this came up briefly, but what I was saying is think about the ways they can leverage that data. If they know all your purchases, what you buy, when you buy it, where you get it from, if they want to cause a supply chain slowdown, and they know that we need something because they see the amount of purchases of it, like
Right.
they can use that data to leverage us or to cause further inflation. Like they can literally use this user data to make an economic situation worse, just to try to bring us to our knees, or at least fucking hurt us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to fucking squeeze us, yeah, and gain an advantage. You know, like, I don't know. There's a lot of ways they could come at us, and they're examining all fronts. Like, you know, they got all kinds of shit going on. They want to have as much influence as possible. They want to buy as many American companies as possible, influence as much of our leadership as possible. I think they want to buy
To
up
learn
our
how to
farmland
divide
too.
us,
Yeah,
to learn how to divide us easier, because they're seeing how we
Yeah.
interact online. If they want to put out bots and improve the
Yeah.
fucking division that they already do with bots on these social media apps, they can do it even better now because they know you so well. You know.
I think they really seek to almost have a stranglehold of influence over our operations that would be beneficial to them. I don't think they want to have like a fucking manned land invasion and, you know, fucking World War II style. But they want to seek their claws and their tentacles into every aspect of our political and economic society that they're calling the shots. I think that's what they're going
Kind
for.
of in a puppet master kind of way, where it's
Yes.
like you don't really see them, but they're there controlling things.
Yes.
Like that's what they're trying to do, and it seems like they're doing a pretty fucking good job so far.
Seem to be winning, yeah.
Yeah, and what is the U.S. government doing to stop this?
Absolutely
I would like to
nothing.
hear a lot more about it. I know they have. There's the the FBI and all that have been cracking down on Confucius organizations on campus that are basically just a front, right? Confucius,
For
Confucius is a good guy,
espionage,
yeah, and they're just
spies.
using it to
Yeah.
infiltrate our society.
Yeah.
But they have been cracking down on that. But I'd like to know more. What are they really doing here? Is there somebody that actually has our back within the government that's trying to really fight and stop fucking China from taking over our way of life and taking over the rest of the world in terms of being a number one power that calls the shots?
And I just don't think. And another thing is crazy. I don't know much about it, but like I know generally the whole thing with fentanyl, how they're fucking just dumping fentanyl into our country via Mexico, like via the cartels, to just for what ends, I don't know, to just fucking cause nothing but havoc and death. It's like, what the fuck is that? Like, I mean, I understand, what the cartels do with like cocaine and marijuana or whatever like that, but like fentanyl, it's really just lethal poison. Like there's not much tangible benefit or enjoyment or anything like that. I mean, it's so fucking potent that it can kill you so easily. Even just stuff that has had fentanyl in it or whatever, and you take a good whiff of that with just like just a little bit of residue can make you horrendously sick or even kill you or something.
I've heard, yeah.
And just them doing that, piping this lethal fucking poison into our country intentionally, like they've been doing, and to have no repercussions for it. I mean, there should be serious fucking repercussions. We're talking about Taiwan and whatnot, and that should be discussed. And and their saber rattling in there is concerning, because Taiwan has so many microchips, and they produce all the fucking microchips, and they want it.
They have the world's
pathological
largest
obsession with Taiwan.
Taiwan has the world's largest chip manufacturer.
Yeah, but for me, I'm sitting around, I'm like, holy shit, we have so many fucking fentanyl deaths going around right now, and it's like with just crickets from our leadership. It's like, oh yeah, it is what it is. Like, dude, fuck that. Like, strangle these hit them with like astronomical fucking tariffs, like cyber attack them, like really start fucking with these guys, make life uncomfortable, like target members of the Communist Party, cyber attack them, seize their assets, lock them up, like put these fuckers on the defensive. Like, it seems like we're just sitting here soaking up punches, and they're on the offensive. Like, make them fucking sweat a little bit. Like, we need to undermine them back. Like, and
For sure.
we have no leadership, so
For sure.
it's non-existent.
Well, the economic arrow is mostly one way with them. We pay them, and they give us goods and produce shit for us. But it is what it is, man. They have too much fucking power over our way of life, about everything from what we consume to how we consume it, to our medicine, like you're saying, to fucking our social media. Fucking crazy, man. And so is the chairman of the FCC came out and said that
this is a concern. Yeah.
What do you think the end game is here? What if they declare that it is a national security concern? Like you say, perhaps you'll be in charge of checking off to make sure people have gotten rid of fucking TikTok
Yep.
off their phone. And the funny thing is, I have a feeling that the fucking withdrawal from this TikTok would be so bad that people are like, I don't care if it's a national security concern. I was like, are you listening to yourself? It's against your best interest to be fucking doing this. No, I have the TikTok. So do we think that it'd probably be more likely that they'll have military members remove it from their personal phones and their work phones or whatever. I mean, I don't think they're allowed to have it on their work phones,
Yeah.
but on their personal phones. Do we think that could be something that the government comes out and says to the rest of the country, to just private citizens, like,
An advisory,
we're not
maybe.
banning it outright, but just know that you're being spied on and that these people are getting your data? Or would that be too much likely to cause some panic? It's just easier to let China have data than fucking
I think there's, dude. I think
alarm
there's
people.
there are so many people who are not so much, maybe not even directly influenced by the CCP, but their balls are held by big corporations that have huge footprints of China and are very China friendly, you know, that there's never going to be a serious pushback on this stuff at the federal level. I think our leadership is, you know, tangentially too compromised, basically, to take any kind of meaningful action. Yeah, the FCC will say that, you know, but I don't know. As far as, like, from the administration or anything, like, no way. You'll have an occasional, you know, senator or congressman pipe up, but in terms of unified response for this shit, no, probably not.
That's interesting. I mean, I feel like maybe there was a day where we would have had that, but when leaders aren't willing to step up to have some kind of unified response, you really just feel abandoned as a citizen. Like, you know, we expect that you're going to be fighting for us, but you start to wonder how rigged this system really is if they're not going to fight for us on issues like this, you know?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much I think it's pretty much in the bag, kind of. I think it'll have to get really bad before people, you know,
Demand more.
Yeah, it's gonna get to the point where I think it's gonna get so bad. I'm not saying it will, but in order to have any kind of meaningful directional change in this country, like, things would have to get so bad, it would be like Kazakhstan style, where you have to pick between, I don't have fuel to cook my food, or I don't have fuel to go from A to B. I can no longer feed or transport. I can do one, but I can't do both. You know, when people's essentials start to be unavailable, you have to pick between essentials. Then people riot. Then you have, like, real insurrections, like Kazakhstan style, where everyone just, like, grabs the AK and starts fucking, you know, overthrowing the government, basically. Like, did you follow that at all, the Kazakhstan thing?
No. Is this new? Is this old?
Recent-ish. Yeah. But it was pretty crazy. It was, yeah, the Kazakh unrest. It was back in January. So there was basically, like, yeah, like, people, there was economic, like, kerfluffle where the price of, what was it? Yeah. Here we go. So it was a series of mass protests and fucking just general calamity that happened after a sharp increase in liquefied gas prices following the lifting of government-enforced price cap. So the price cap went away, prices went up, and these fuckers were, like, just rioting, like, all over the country. It got pretty violent. Yeah, 227 people were killed, over 9,900 were arrested. Yeah, so it's shit, like, lit off there. But that's the kind of shit that, like, that would have to happen, is when its essentials become unreachable, then you're gonna have mass unrest. Then people will be like, okay, demanding change. Like, hey, you guys got to get the fuck out of here. You've run this shit into the ground. Like, and they're on the way. I think we're on the way there to running shit into the ground, like, fiscally. So I don't know.
Seems like we're getting close when we talk
we're on the
about
way.
$3 trillion deficits every year. I mean, that's an impressive amount of money. The half trillions, they'll add up over the course of many years, right? Or not many years, but just over years. Whereas $3 trillion deficits, like, holy shit, you're adding on a big helping all at once. That's fucking insane. Like, COVID's not good.
What? Yeah.
COVID's not good for America, but neither is that kind of spending. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. I don't know how long we're going to be able to kick this can down the road.
Yes, we've been sustaining kicking the can down the road for quite a long time now. Who knows how long it'll last, but we'll be here fucking chatting about it as that time goes on. So I think we're at the last one.
Last topic, yes.
The feds raid Mar-a-Lago on a warrant to try to see if Trump was in possession of classified documents that he wasn't supposed to be.
Basically, yeah.
So that's the whole thing kind of in a nutshell.
I mean, specifics are kind of scarce, but they're basically saying Trump had documents. Maybe he might have documents that he wasn't supposed to have, that they're saying it could be classified, it could be top secret or something. And generally, let's see here. The Justice Department is basically saying, you need to return these documents. So like the National Archives, like traditionally when presidents leave office, like they'll dump they'll do like a docu-dump on like the National Archives, which is where they're supposed to go. But Trump has a bunch of documents like in this room where that they're saying should have gone to the National Archives, but he has been like unresponsive or like uncooperative and turning them back is what they're saying. And but it's an interesting precedent. Like, you wonder if he wasn't touting a potential bid for 2024, would this be happening? Who knows?
Less likely to be happening.
Probably less likely, yeah.
Because a lot of time went by since he's been out of office, and they haven't. I would think if they needed a warrant to go search for something like that, they'd get it pretty quickly.
Yeah, if it was that big of an oopsie that you need an FBI raid, it's like it's always been sitting on these documents or whatever, and it's like for this long, fucking 2022 now. The election was in 2020, so okay, like yeah, I don't know. It just seems like the timing is a bit. But even I was reading in here, even like if he was like convicted of a crime or anything like that, they're trying to say that even the statute that would maybe prevent him from running, but it's not guaranteed, that like, because there's really no precedent for this shit. This is we're in uncharted waters here with like, if you had a former president convicted of a crime, then he ran again, does that preclude him from running? Maybe, according to this one. I forget. Let's see if it has here in the article. But it's odd. Okay, here we go. I'm pulling it up now. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So one possible avenue they could get him on is for quote, willfully and unlawfully mishandling public records. And that's in section 2071 of the U.S. Criminal Code. That cause for anyone who has done that, who has willfully and unlawfully mishandled public records, they can be, quote, disqualified from holding any office under the United States, according to the U.S. Criminal Code. But they're not sure if that would necessarily preclude you from running for president. So, I don't know. And the Constitution
sounds pretty general.
Yeah, the Constitution is specific about qualifications to be a president, and it offers impeachment as a remedy to bar people from serving as president. So some people are saying that, Congress does not have the authority to change those qualifications. It's already in the Constitution. So it's without a constitutional amendment. So that's an interesting legal conundrum. So, and this is, like I said, this scenario has never been played out in court before. So we're in uncharted legal waters in terms of this. So, and that's if he gets, convicted under the criminal code.
That's interesting, man. He's facing criminal fucking trouble, and that could be interesting to see how that plays out. To see if he is convicted, then, I mean, we're literally going to watch be able to watch this unfold. And you know, if I'm a betting man, I'm saying that Trump's not going to take it laying down. So he's going to be out there fucking fighting it in court. We'll get to see how that all plays out. But also, it scares me about the possible unrest that we would see or further division in this country, because
it could be bad.
If he's convicted and they say they won't allow him to fucking hold public office again, first of all, who knows what Trump himself will do and say to his loyalists and to people that follow him, his followers. But just people, even if he doesn't say anything at all, like people that support Trump are going to think like this is the fucking conspiracy here. Mm-hmm. They're going to say, first of all, not only did they steal the election, that's what Trump supporters will claim, but they'll also say, now you've prevented him from ever running again too. Like it just seems very conspiratorial. Yeah.
Even Biden said, I think even Biden's on the record is saying that how it's kind of a bad precedent to like to try and prosecute, you know, potential political opponents that are coming up for an election, like, because then you start to have the appearance of running a banana republic. Like all of a sudden you start to look like a South American dictatorship or something. And if that does occur, I mean, it's going to give Trump and his supporters like a huge. I think even from this FBI raid, you know, if they don't convict him, like the clout that he's going to get from that, like, is going to be beneficial for him running to re-election. Like, hey, look, they tried to stop you, they tried to fucking shut you down, like they're afraid of you, you know, and this is going to be a lot of political momentum from this if they're not able to actually like bar him from running legally. So, because it looks like they're trying to, and I understand why they would want to. It's been a bad run for old Joe. It's not been the greatest. I don't think you know, you can argue whether how much that is attributable to him versus just circumstances. Who the fuck knows? You know, I can't even holistically answer that question myself. It's a mix, I think. But things have not gone well. Certainly, I don't think anybody can say that things have really improved in terms of, like, you know, how obviously inflation and prices in the economy, it's not great. Like it's all worse than it was under Trump. So that's just a fact. And regardless if you're Democrat or Republican, there's no disputing that. If you dispute it, you're living
fantasy.
You're in a fantasy. You're delusional. So,
yeah, because what you're saying is you don't know how much is attributable to himself or to the circumstances of the time, but just the numbers are what they are. Inflation is higher, costs are higher, consumer goods costs are higher. Well, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Trump. You know, all this seems to lead toward, you know, them energizing his base, and then you got to start to wonder, who is it that really doesn't want him around? You know, like, it's to China's benefit not to have Trump or someone like Trump in office.
Definitely.
Who was harder to predict, harder to control, who started laying in tariffs in his last year of office that were damaging to China. Was finally starting to put the screws to him a bit and cause some tension, cause him some economic pain. I heard that Biden let those expire or, you know, got rid of them, but that I don't know. That's something that we should check into for another podcast, because a lot of the stuff I've read, Josh Rogan argued in his book that they shouldn't let those expire or take them away. Like,
now where they're pumping us full of fentanyl, fuck that, you know.
Well,
Jesus,
fentanyl, COVID came from China.
Things.
Yeah, COVID came from China. Fucking, you know, all the other bullshit we deal with, information stealing, all the stuff we were talking about through TikTok. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see on another episode, but interesting stuff. We'll see. You know, based on what we already know about Trump's base, I don't think they're going to take this fucking shit laying down. So I just hope that it could be, like, you know, if he gets away with it, then he's like the legend. If he gets convicted and they say he can't serve in public office anymore, I mean, this shit's going to go on for years. It's almost like the division this could cause for years is right out of like fucking somebody's like evil playbook, you know. You're like, holy shit,
a John Clancy,
just battling it out in the court system until it gets all the way to the Supreme Court, you know, and then who knows what fucking way they'll come down. Obviously, they seem a little more conservative now, so. But it's all good, man. What anything you want to add to the Trump raid or any of that?
I think we pretty much covered it all. We'll just see. It's gonna be interesting to see how everything plays out. Um, it's, but like you said, if things kind of go south and they do like kind of bar him from running again on this, this reminds me. Do you remember the Petraeus thing where Petraeus he kind of had a falling out with Obama, and then all of a sudden, like they find this notebook with classified information in his desk or something. He had written classified information in his fucking like notepad or whatever like that, and they got him on that to get him out. And it smacks to me of that. Like, I think there's a lot of discretion the executive has in how they pursue these things and handling of what's classified, what's not. Even classification, they have, you can make arguments for like what's classified, what's not, and, it's not necessarily something that's set in stone. It's something that can be debatable, and something that was classified previously can be then unclassified, or some, it's weird how classification systems work. And then other things can be taken in aggregate, when you
all
have
that
like
together
four
is
pieces
classified,
of unclassified information put together, they're technically, so they could say, oh, hey, Trump had, individually these things were not classified, but you know what, all taken together we're gonna call them classified. And, there's ways they can skin that cat, I think, in order to fit the fucking octopus through the keyhole and get them. So they might get him on this one. I don't know, we'll see. So
stay tuned.
Yeah, stay
we'll
tuned,
talk
ladies
about it
and
when it
gentlemen.
happens.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I always say that at the end of the podcast, kindness and respect have allowed me to get along with people from all sorts of walks of life, all sorts of backgrounds. I believe that, kindness and all these other things in life are contagious. Kindness and respect are like currency that we have an abundance of, that we wouldn't have to worry about printing too much of. So don't worry about kindness inflation. Start spending it, because it's the most powerful currency we have. You'll notice that the universe has a way of reflecting back at you what you put out there. So I believe that when you put that kindness and respect out there, it'll come back to you. Good people make each other good, so be good to yourself, be good to your family, be good to your community, and tune in next time to the next episode of the Blessed Life University podcast. BLU podcast for short. We love ya. Peace out.
Peace.